I'll go through these. There's almost 80 paintings that I'm going to be talking about. I'll try and go just maybe a little bit more in depth with the actual award winners. I have a couple little notes to make sure I don't forget to say anything. But yeah, I'll try to go beyond. I just like this painting and that kind of thing. Explain a little bit about my thought process going into it, and I'll say again, when I was judging this show, anybody who's judged, and I'm sure there's a handful of people in this room that have had the opportunity to do that before, and it's just such a difficult job. Big organizations like this have so many talented members, and when you get to that, as I'm judging the show, I kind of get it, go through the whole thing once on my computer screen to get a sense of what overall sense of the show. And even then, you kind of start to get an inkling of, wow, that's amazing, and this one might not make it. But then I start going through and make some more of those decisions every time, and getting rid of a few more and putting definite yeses on a few more. And pretty soon you end up with this, group of maybes, and it's a huge group of maybes that you have to really kind of go through a little bit more in depth. And and again, I think I went through it, a handful of times, and I got the maybes down to like 120 entries, and realized, I get rid of 40 more, and that's just heartbreaking, because there's so many good paintings, and as much as I try and keep things, as objective as possible, yes, there are things that come into play. You can obviously tell skill and, design and composition and all those kinds of things that come into play. But art is subjective, and I was just talking to a member last night. She thanked me for not putting her painting in the show because she entered in a different show and she got best in show in that one. So, and yeah, yep, I'm still waiting for that drink, by the way. Um, and you know what? Then you hear those stories all the time. Okay, that same thing happens to me. I got rejected this year from AWS. Put the painting and entered into NWS. I didn't get best in show, but I got an award in National Watercolor Society for it. So you just don't know. Again, it's just, and some of those bigger shows have, a handful of judges selecting it, so it's a little bit more, even playing field. Where the general consensus kind of rules. But when there's one person judging the show, you can't get rid of the subjectivity. So don't take it too personally if you weren't in there. I'm sure everyone was in that last two that didn't make it. So that's the way it works. Okay, I'll go through this now a little bit one-on-one here. This is the first painting that I'll talk about, Sue Downs Allen, Troubled Waters. Um, just kind of really, I mean, when I saw the title, it threw me off a little bit because it's got so much optimism in it. The colors, it's a really beautiful painting with all the bright colors and stuff. But just, I mean, I like trout fishing, and anybody who stood by, a river like that in the fall and felt, or in the spring, and felt those raging rivers coming through. This painting just really depicted to me that kind of the power of the water. I love it, and the decisions to put those bright red rocks through there too, I thought was pretty bold, and just kind of helped offset all the cool blues of the river. Knocking down the tree trunks over there and stuff. So a pretty powerful painting. I like this one a lot. And this isn't working again. Yes.
When you look at the painting, do you see the person's name and title?
No, actually. I mean, well, I can't remember. Yeah, no. When you're judging, no, I don't get a chance to see the title. And then when I judged it for awards, then I did, I think. But yeah, why isn't this work? I can't get this thing to work here. The previous one, if you can go back just real quick, as far as composition and design wise, the way they made the decision to put a pattern shape next to a flat shape next to a pattern shape, kind of that um, back and forth. So even though it's got a lot of energy, there's still like a little calm area, a busy area, calm area, busy area. So, I don't know if they're planning to do that, but I'm assuming they put the forethought into doing that when they were designing the clothing and stuff. So even though it's kind of flat, obviously the cartoonish or whatever, but they still had some of those possibilities. Thank you. Okay, autumn attraction. Kind of like that, the distance between them. Normally it's the other way around. The woman's reading and the guy's leering. But So I like that twist of fate, number one on the painting. But you know, the bright sunlight in here really kind of helps to emphasize the figures, you know, those shadows, but then the figures, by the way, are exquisitely rendered, very convincing. The perspective, the drawing on this is all done really well. And that shadow, um, you know, maybe a little bit more wet into wet would have been nice, just a little more softness on it, but I really like the way it kind of bent around the window frame too. Using that's a really important part of, and even down below, you know, the shadow going up across the plane and up and over, but in particular, the way it bent across that window frame was really cool. So I like that painting as well. And just, you know, somebody even asked in the workshop, the shadows, how they're darker right next to the object that cast them, and then getting a little bit more ambient light into them. So, you know, shadows are, excuse me, one of, I mentioned this in my workshop too, oil painters in general have so many of the advantages over watercolor painters. Their painting stays wet forever. They can adjust. Something comes in the scene. They can keep fixing things, scrape the whole thing off and start over, whatever they want to do. We're kind of stuck with, you know, what's there. Transparent watercolor when you're dealing with that. But one of our true advantages are the transparency of shadows. A shadow is a transparent dark where you can kind of see through it to the local color of the object underneath it. And too often people make their shadows too heavy and they're going to lose that possibility. So this is a really nice, beautiful, convincing, transparent shadow, also taking advantage of that quality. The art of the deal. This is awesome too. I mean, at first I didn't even notice the woman back there behind there. Like they're all, she's a tourist somewhere and they're all gathering around her. Here's someone we can rip off again. But it's happened to all of us. And then the guy's face, you know, going off to the left like he just did it. You know, he's happy with himself. So love the character of this too. Again, really nice figures. The simple color scheme, basically just primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, works really well together also to add a real nice vibrancy to the scene. The different heights of the figures going through there, you know, staggering about, is really well done too. So good design, good theme, kind of a fun painting. Yellow kimono. This painting, I'm seeing it in person last night, was really nice. It glows even more in person. Really vibrant painting, the portrait. And the decision doesn't always have to be overly rendered. I kind of like the fact that some of this was just left a little bit flattered. Her blouse in particular, or the shirt underneath her kimono, that flat shape is really important. Kind of going back to what I was saying about the dance party. It doesn't have to be all so busy. It kind of mirrors the shadow and the simplicity on the side of her face a little bit more and balances everything out. So really love the glowing colors on there. Her expression is done well. That nice complementary soft blue in the background. It helps to make everything pop even more. All right, this is an impressive one. Sienna, whole lot of drawing going on in this one. He was at the show last night and said he's an architect, so he has a little bit of advantage over the rest of us when it comes to drawing all the buildings, but it shows everything's very convincing on here. You know, the windows, it's important. A lot of times a scene like this, the windows can really take over, but he managed to simplify them enough. Windows can really become a big problem area in a lot of paintings, especially in Europe, where it's just, you know, faces, big buildings where it's just window upon window upon window, and these are simplified nicely, going across the page. And then getting color in the shadows is nice too. Okay, they're not dead shadows. Nothing in here is you know, like I said, just kind of dead. Interesting in this one, again, you know, the disadvantage of judging online, the figures stood out a lot more here on the screen, like they weren't integrated in that shadow shape. And when I saw the painting last night, I think the shadow in the buildings in the foreground was deeper and the figures melded into it a little bit better. So take a look at this one, you know, when you go back to the show and kind of notice the difference. But that's a nice painting. Interwoven, good title. Good painting. These two friends, I don't know if it's a mother-daughter or two close friends leaning into each other, dressed similarly. Doggone it. I don't know why it just keeps skipping to. I just keep going back. But again, just kind of love the abstraction. I love the abstraction of human forms in a lot of these paintings that I selected. They don't always have to be realistic. I talked about this in my workshop too, the simplicity and how much you can just imply when it comes to the human figure. And as long as the proportions are semi-accurate, how much the viewer's brain fills in the rest. And that the decision to make, I love that white scarf kind of coming down to break up just a little bit of the space between them. There's still a nice connection down below through them, not only color wise, like I said, similar colors back and forth, but that little dark down where they're joined at the hip, so to speak, interwoven. I like that painting too. I like the simplicity of the forms. Meditation number 4, sun, sea, sky. Boy, it sure feels like that too. It just feels like a day standing at the shore of the ocean, staring out at it. It's kind of interesting, even looking at. There's a subtle difference in the kind of marks and just a little bit of a value shift too. You might not be able to notice it too well on the screen here, but on the painting, it's just a little bit brighter up in the sky. There's a little bit more white up in the sky. The aqua blue is a little bit brighter up there. The water is just a little bit deeper of a tone. And again, the kind of marks, the sky just has a lot more energy, almost like dry brush kind of cloud type shapes. And then down in the water level, some of them are a little bit more curvilinear. Even that dark shape coming up from the corner looks like waves kind of crashing up. So just subtle little things like that kind of show the separation between the sun, the sea, and the sky. And just I like the way they staggered the yellow bits around there too. So it didn't, most of I know I would have said, oh, the sun's there. I got to put a reflection and put it underneath it. But I like the artist's decision to kind of bounce it around a little bit. Out of my depth, that's what I would say if I was trying to tackle this painting. That's a pretty impressive painting, doggone it. Just really beautifully handled, convincing forms, textures, the sense of the depth in the water. There again, the artist's decision to, when you're underwater, obviously everything is affected by the color of the water, so the temptation is just to have blue over everything. And the artist did kind of tint the hands, the arm, a little bit of the face blue, but I love that nice bright orange under her chin. That contrast kind of draws your eye. Not, I mean, normally you go to the face anyways, but that just even emphasizes it even more. That really nice, strong, warm color right there by your face and just sucks you right. Aster morning. Thing that impressed me the most about this one was the greens. Greens are real. You hear artists all over the place talking about how tricky greens are to paint, and there's a really nice, convincing variety of these greens going back, the warmer greens in the foreground, palms, going back to those cooler natural greens in the background. Some real nice negative painting going on for the tree trunks and things. And I even kind of like the decision to put the barbed wire fence going across it too. That's kind of a bold move. Some people might say, don't put that in there, but why not? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. She did a nice job of the organization of the trees too. Tall tree, lower tree, taller tree breaking up. Semi-tall trees, one other tall tree that helps the viewer's eye kind of bounce around too. Dance with the sky. Again, that just kind of feels like this. This is where I wish I had a laser pointer to kind of go at the screen for you, but I kind of like down that lower left area. There's just a couple of small shapes. The more I studied it, that almost look like figures going down there, and then kind of curving down, and then that kind of energy of the warmer shapes working its way up the painting. It kind of brings you up there to that nice blue, ending up in the little bubbles, white bubbles going up to the sky. Really nice design. I love the composition of it, the color, complementary color choices, and again the boldness of saying I'm going to put a bright red right over there on the side. And for whatever reason, I didn't notice this until later, but it didn't. It never really sucked me over to the side. You think it would initially, like that's the first place you go, but my mind kind of stayed in the middle of the painting, the contrast and the energy of those brush marks going right up, up the middle, all the way up. So I'm not sure why the artist decided to put that on there, but it was a bold move, and luckily it doesn't distract from the rest of the painting. It's kind of nice to have that little touch of color over there. This is one of those where I was like, I've not seen a painting like that before. That was really cool. I like this one a lot too. Interesting perspective, a very unique style. That flat blue sky reflected into that ribbon of the water, winding its way through the whole composition. But just I love the design of this, the execution of it, the idea behind it. The little figures sitting on the rock are fun. Again, just a real it's obvious. Sometimes it's a fluke when an artist does a painting like this. I did it in a workshop or something. But this artist obviously has, I would assume, a pretty developed style where they can do, paintings like this. Hopefully, I can tell that also. Every once in a while, you go through and you see, an artist collection of work, and there's an abstract, there's something like this, there's something more real, and they're kind of all over the place. But this is advanced enough and really convincing enough with the design and composition of it, everything it seems like it's a really well-developed style that this artist has developed, and it's unique. It's not an easy thing to do this day and age. It's a lot of mimicry. The tourist was so funny. You hear this, anybody that goes to New York and you talk to somebody who lives there, and they said you can tell somebody who doesn't live there looking up all the time. Nobody who lives in New York looks up. They have their head down or straight forward, and they're just marching. So that's so true. People from out there kind of taking in the view. Number one, I just got a kick out of that. That's so true. Um, Taking in the view there. But I mean, talk about really, really nicely handled figures. Wow, that is so impressive. I mean, everything about it. It doesn't feel busy. The foreground has that nice kind of empty space, a little bit of a dappled shadow. Love the painted shadow of the table, by the way, too. The little dappled light going through there, that's really nice. Those chairs are amazing, even those wider chairs that they're sitting in. Everything about this is to the reflection in the window on the left, really, really highly skillful painter here. And I mean, the figure on the right in particular, I love her outfit is so convincing. The values, her expression on her face, squinting up in the sun. Um, yeah, great painting. Congratulations. And this one, I had a feeling this is one of those that would have looked better in person. Also, you kind of get a feeling for it looking at the screen, but sure enough, last night I saw it in those velvety colors were amazing on the horse. And I just love, there's another painting in the show that I put in where it's kind of a horse portrait or, whatever, where you're only seeing a bit of the horse. And I like the design choices on this one too, just putting the jockey up there almost as an afterthought. But that the horse power, even the title that anybody who sat on a horse, you realize, you're not in charge. This animal can make, if it decides to do something, I'm screwed. And the power of the horse, the musculature of it. I love how they just kind of tackled that as this big, simple, powerful shape of the horse. And again, I mean, the charm of watercolor are those beautiful lost edges where the colors are just mixing and merging. I talk about that a lot, and this is showcased, throughout this painting. I love those glowing washes. Beautiful, beautiful work. Seasons. This guy's expression is classic. I mean, that's just like, are we done? It's just, we stop walking? Can you stop shopping? Whatever it is, it's just she's just in her own world. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm interpreting it the wrong way. Maybe he's still madly in love with her after 50 years of marriage, and he can't take his eyes off her. Maybe I should say that instead. But I love the expression on this guy's face. I think it's a really cool painting of the people. And even though it's two people in there, her back is to us, looking away, and he's looking at her. No one's looking at us, but you can really get a sense of their relationship, their personalities, everything. It's a fun painting. I love this painting. The decision to use the muted darks, the black and the gray and just kind of that, neutral tint kind of color for all the dramatic shapes that allowed the artist to have, I mean, those subtle, soft pinks and oranges look so colorful, but they're so muted. And I personally, those pastel colors, I think, are just so beautiful, and they wouldn't mean anything without the decision to, leave the rest of the painting, those dark, like I said, kind of more neutrals and grays. And I like the composition of this one too, with those verticals breaking up through it, and then the more organic curvilinear shapes coming in and out through the side. Beautiful, restful areas in some spots, energetic areas, different small shapes, large shapes. The whole design of this is handled really nicely. But in particular, like I said, I really, really love the colors on there, and it's all heightened by the fact that she just kind of left. I mean, most of us don't want to paint grays and browns and stuff, but it really worked well in this instance. Bowlegs Creek 4. I'm not sure where the title of this one came from, but it's an interesting name for this gentleman. Um, and whoops. But again, value is so important. Color gets all, we hear this, color gets all the credit, but value does all the work. Everybody's heard that term before, and this is a perfect example of that. You know, the the ability to just play with color and have fun with color, and you know that inner sense of what works, and you know the warmth on his beard and his face and everything. But that's not going to mean anything if you don't master the values. And all the values work amazingly well in this portrait. You know, the decision to just kind of make the eye socket, the eye itself, and the eye socket's nice and dark. That mouth works really well, really pops out the light beard, and again, just kind of compositionally using the dark background behind the white hair and the bright side of his face, and then using the light background behind the dark side of his face to help show the forms better. Um, Nicely handled, and obviously an artist who knows what they're doing. Basking on Lake Jessup shoreline. Really, really convincing textures, obviously. The handling of the hide of those crocodiles or alligators, sorry, is, I'm assuming they're alligators. I don't know. Alligators, yeah. But not only that, I mean, so the technical capabilities and obviously, the high skill level that goes into that. But again, paying attention to zooming in and cropping so that you have a better composition. That front alligator, you're only seeing, half of it. The whole back of the tail, the entire head is off of the page. Um, Cropping in and zooming almost always makes a better composition. Instead of trying to fit all of the alligators in with white space around it, so that's a really important, strong design. I like the fact that it's vertical so that they're winding up like that through the scene. That also allows the um, forms of the alligators to be cut off by cropping the painting that way. And then using the light, dark again, the dark alligator that's got its face on the other one, and then the light underneath it. The little dark shadow under that one's chin has the bounced light from the shoreline under its on its chin. So those two are playing off of each other. The one up above at the top, the dark head in front of the light shadow. So no need to outline these forms to define them. If you want to show a light shape, paint a dark shape next to it, and vice versa. Painting really good, convincing shapes and not relying on lines, I think, is important too. Even on something as detailed as this, there's still very, a lot of nice, big, convincing shapes. Bowl of essential ingredients. Yeah, kind of a fun one. It's nice to see, a still life that's not too masked and really too tight. There's still a little bit of looseness to the drawing here. Kind of an interesting, different perspective, which I liked also. But right away, one of the first things that got me, number one, I love the colors in the onions. That's awesome. I love the fact that they're not perfectly round also. That's funny. You can tell who does the cooking in our house. Um, but the colors in there are awesome. And then but in particular the interior of that bowl is so cool too, the way those shapes are bent just right. The shadow in there and the little highlight shows a lot of the form, but so much of the form, the interior of that bowl is described by the kind of the, what's the word I'm trying to say, the distortion of that pattern in the bowl, and she handled that just exquisitely. It's so convincing without a lot of shadow on it, so kudos to the artist for that. Everything is simplified nicely. The tomatoes, are they tomatoes or are they cherries? Jeez. Cherry tomatoes, there you go. Nice painting. Mandy's morning. Kapow! Look at that thing. That sunset is gorgeous. That's an impressive sky. Just going for it. Love those color choices in there. Green's a little strong and intense, but still, I mean, it's Florida. I don't know what Florida looks like. I'm up in Minnesota, so maybe the grass is like that. But I really like that, and going as dark. It's important. A lot of my students also do this when they're trying to show a sunset. They don't go dark enough with the landscape, and that powerful light in the sky is enhanced by the decision to go nice and strong, especially with the backlit trees, but also with the green itself up there above the water. And that also helps to pop the reflection in the puddle also by going strong enough. And it was really important to have not only those subtle reflections coming down, but also a couple of those plants in the foreground coming up to break up the front edge of that pond also. Looking back, another one with a really nice design, something, a scene that I haven't seen much before. Uh, the the figures are all kind of restless, standing in line, very convincing. But in particular, the title refers to obviously the figure that's there, and I would think, without knowing the title, that he was actually looking that way. But the fact that he's looking back, he's looking at us, I think, and or you can't really tell which way he's looking. I love that vagueness of it, trying to decide if he's looking, waiting for us to join him, or looking to the line to see if they're finally got their tickets to join him. But I like that little bit of a mystery in the story. Great colors up above again too, just like I was saying with Mandy's sunset. That contrast of really showing the brightness of the light outside the building by going dark enough, not only with the figures in front of it, but the framework of the interior, the doorway. Nice rich colors. I like that one. Jazzy, just a lot of personality in this gal. Just kind of something about her pose too just kind of says, she's trying to project this, I'm a strong young woman, but the way her hands are, it's just a little bit uncomfortable. Like she doesn't like being painted, her portrait, or something about it. But yeah, I like, there's just so much character in that figure. You really feel like you know that person in there. And I love the big flat colors in here too, that strong red, that strong vibrant green, and complementing her blue jeans like that. It's a really powerful. I like the colors and the strength of that. This painting, there's another one that's even more incredible in person. I like that one quite a bit. In fact, I'm kind of regretting that I didn't give it an award. But the speaking to the news lately, and obviously when this painting was done, I'm sure it was more when we were hearing it was daily. The struggle that's happening in Iran, and I don't know if I'm assuming this artist might be Iranian, but maybe not. But we've all been living through this nightmare, unfortunately, in the news around the world in many, many places. And, using your art to make a social statement is nice. So again, just kind of a powerful portrait with what's going on behind her. And I kind of like the fact that she's rendered, very realistically, and behind her, it's more of, I don't want to say like a child's interpretation, but there's not, those figures in the background aren't really, realistic or anything. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of styles between the two. Almost like maybe what's behind you isn't real. I've been trying to put it out of your mind. The berry. I like the decision on this one to use that nice big white background too. It really spotlights the black heads of the crows. And birds are so intelligent, in particular, crows and ravens. You almost get a sense that these two are having a conversation, talking to each other, trying to trick each other or whatever. But in particular, I love the drips. Again, just looking for different kinds of things, in these shows. I want to make sure there's a nice variety of styles for when somebody comes walking the show, they're not seeing the same thing over and over again. I want them to go painting to painting, go, oh, that's something different. That's cool. That's different. And yeah, I like the kind of almost the allegory or a story that's happening in here, like it's something from a child's book, The Berry. This one, the more I looked at it, the more I realized I'm like, it's so interesting somehow, some way, and maybe it's kind of in the lost edges and the big shapes, but it looks like rain. I mean, you're seeing some reflections, I'm sure, but nothing is a lost edge. If I was going to try and paint rain, um, I would, I would definitely be putting in, reflections in the ground plane while things were wet, so they fuzzed. I'd be trying to soften and fuzz lights and details and things, and somehow, I'm not sure how, again, probably value or just a high skill level, but this art, it managed to convince the feeling of a wet, rainy night without a lot of lost edges. So, there's a lot of highly defined things in here in contrast and sharpness to it, but yet it still feels kind of vague and wet. Nice painting. Shiguo, abandoned guitar. This is a this is a really really moody, powerful painting too. I like this one quite a bit. One of the things that I found kind of interesting on it was the fact that the way she handled the body itself. I mean, the face has obviously a little bit of definition on one side, and it's completely lost on the other side. The one arm on the hanging down along the side of her body is very defined. The other arm is blurry. One foot is very highly defined. The other one's like gone. You don't even see it. So it's just kind of it's something about it has a lot of mystery to it. It's convincing, like she's actually, even though it's pretty realistic, but realistically handled and developed, but she still feels like she's walking towards us because of those little mysterious areas. Love the muted color palette, and they're just using again the power of value to really kind of set the mood and make something impactful. Kind of looks like a sepia photograph or something. It's really cool, and the setting is a little um, odd too. I don't know, something about that is a little disturbing. A meth house or something. I don't know. Birds of a feather. I like this one a lot too. Just kind of this lady looks like she's, I don't know. I mean, and again, I don't know the story behind these things, but I'm always trying to figure things when I see a painting like this, and it just having those little birds tugging at her are just, I kind of pictured it as being someone. I mean, she looks like she's just someone that's trying to be unique in her own person. And the way her face is, the odd thing that she's got on her head, the big tattoo, but she's got all these little birds chirping in her ear, holding her back, pulling the tattoo off and saying, no, you can't go forward and be who you want to be. That's how I interpreted that one. And, even the feather shape coming down is mirrored. You can barely see it, but it's up in her hair. There's another kind of a feather shape in the back of her hair. Another really interesting portrait. This one is amazing, the technical capabilities here. I've had the opportunity to, I don't know what it is about it, but I've donated, I just, to our local arts organization, a commission painting, and people bid on it, and then they can hire me. And I think almost every time, would you paint our house? Okay. It's really hard to inject life and character into a house, but this is a pretty impressive painting. The again, the importance of there's a lot of illusion of detail in here, actually. A lot of vagueness in some of the shadow areas under the porch. Love those bright reflections in the windows under the porch too, to kind of break that area up a little bit. Even the windows up above the point, kind of in the center of the top floor up there. Every one of those windows is different. Either the color, a little bit of the shape, where the dark is, where the light is, whatever. That's so important because we can just keep making the same mark over and over again. And just that little bit of variety goes a long way. And I mean, just incredible. The trees, everything about it is high skill level. Excuse me. Lily goes to Michigan. It's just so fun too. It's just like she's excited for her first trip or something, looking up at it. Just a very whimsical painting. Another thing that almost looks like it could be the title and cover of a children's book. Lily goes to Michigan. Let's follow her adventures. Yeah. But I just thought it was a really charming. You see a lot of, pet portraits and things too, but here again, kind of a different perspective, looking up in anticipation at you and ready to leave and waiting for you. Yeah, the eyes have so much emotion to it. I mean, animals are awesome. I love them all. Palmetto Party. I really like the fact, kind of a little bit along the same lines as that other abstract with the subtle, with the grays and the subtle pinks. The fact that this artist used the white of the kind of the inverse instead of blacks and grays, using the white of the paper for the highlights and the sunlit areas. But they didn't have to go too crazy with the colors of the palmettos. It's still a very, very colorful painting, but it's mostly reliant on those little touches of warmth in there. But if you look at all the blues and greens in there, they're very neutralized, And again, that's all because of the decision to use the white paper, I think, for the lights. She didn't have to go crazy with the, yeah, didn't have to go crazy with the colors in the palmettos to make it look like a very colorful painting, and just amazing skill at doing negative painting and stuff too. I love all that. And building up the depth in these kind of paintings is really tricky too. Shadows and making some look behind the other, and it's not all just dark in the background. There are some lights in the background too to show that the sunlight is dappled throughout. Birds, X. Um, kind of like the decision in this one to have almost like a different pattern in each big section. That top bird has its own pattern. The bottom bird has a different pattern. The tree trunk has a different pattern. The branch that that bird is sitting on has a different pattern still. Okay, so those highly patterned areas, obviously, attracting the attention, and then with those restful areas in the background. Um, and, that black stripe that she decided to put behind the bird on the left was so important. I kind of blocked that out once or twice to see, why did she put that weird black shape back there? But it's amazing how that balances the whole composition. It allows you to define the bird a little bit better, the branch down below, just that little bit of a dark shape coming down there. So little things like that, when you're dealing with things that are non-represent, it's a little bit representational, obviously, but it's abstracted, and design decisions like that are even heightened. They take on that much more importance. And that was a really smart move on that artist's part to do that. Love the character of those, that threesome too, a lot like the tourist painting. Just such a convincing, you feel like these ladies. We all have friends that look like this, stand like this, act like this. You know, it's just so great. There's just something so familiar about these ladies. Like you just want to go have a margarita with them after this. And love it. The simplicity of form here. It's not easy to, like I was saying before, show that much character and uh, convincibility in these figures without going, highly into detail. But the right shapes, those great shadows on the legs, showing the calves, everything, the shoulder blades of the lady with the strap dress and everything. Really, really good shape making in here. I love it. And that sky in the background is fabulous. Yeah, that's a fun painting. One last look. Another one, kind of like the bird one, where you have some representational forms balanced with geometric decisions. So it's all about design and composition and making sure that you have restful areas and busy areas. We've got that pattern in her skirt and kind of going up into her blouse and neck is balanced by that other shape up in the other right hand. And they're both kind of connected with that curvilinear shape going through. So all those kind of organic shapes where the viewer's eye travels through the painting are balanced by those simpler kind of push-pull of the geometric shapes overlapping in the background and setting it all off. I like how those curvilinear shapes kind of over the hourglass of the figure to kind of help show her form a bit more too and emphasize it. This painting was fun to see last night how small it was. Personally, I like small paintings, intimate paintings, and it's everybody, most people for shows want to paint big. I get it, showcase everything, but it's kind of nice to see some small paintings once in a while. It was really fun to see how small this painting was and intimate, because it's kind of an intimate space. It's very kind of, I like the decision it's really unique. Again, something to paint. How many people would paint this kind of weird rundown hallway in Havana, and it also kind of speaks. I haven't been to Cuba, but hear about the grandiose old days of Havana, and then how it's kind of gotten run down, over the years and stuff. So showing the past glory of things and the architecture and all that, but really nice, design and composition there. But again, I just like the decision to paint something, so unique. You don't see scenes like that, and then the painting itself, how intimate it was really nice to see. Daydreaming. Great title for this piece. That's kind of, I mean, I could have titled it the same thing without even that. It looks like that, this person, excuse me, kind of staring at you like you're talking at them, but you can tell from their gaze they're not really paying attention to what you're saying. Looking, my mind is somewhere else. I'm in the office listening to you tell me what to do, but I want to be outside in nature, all these great natural forms around her. You know, I love that. It's just a beautifully expressive painting. And that weird bird, that Dr. Seuss bird in there. I don't know what the heck that thing is either, but it's kind of fun. Respite, another great title. She just looks like she's, taking a sigh, a sigh of relief, kind of, with her head bent back. I love you don't see many portraits again like that, the position of her head. A lot, very powerful sense of who this person is. Once again, without a lot of detail in the skin tone. I don't mind. I keep saying that. It's not that I don't like detail, but I'm always impressed when people can convey more with less and not overwork things. And I even let the way her scarf is just kind of merging into the background there. And nice painting. No matter what. This is an interesting painting too. The more I looked at it, trying to figure out the story behind and everything, but the main thing is just kind of showcasing what watercolor can do. Big paintings of moisture in the air, rain there, the surging surf and everything. I talked to the artist a little bit last night, and she was saying how she kind of approaches one of her heroes is Chen Chi, and if anybody has had a chance to watch him paint, kind of deciding where those koi are going to be. I've seen him do a demonstration. He just kind of paints the water and puts it in there, and then he just kind of gets a feel for where he should put the koi in there. And she said she kind of did that with the gulls too, just kind of getting a feeling of where they should be in the painting and lifting them out. But yeah, this is a really well executed painting. Gives you a great kind of, it's a little bit of an unnerving sense of doom or something. You're out there in this raging water with a life jacket or something. I don't know. Scanning. Dog is out there trying to do his job. Um, Trying to find some game. I don't know if it's a hunter or a fisher, but I assume it's a kind of a hunter. But what's that? Oh, sorry. I thought you had a question. But again, the simplicity of shapes, and here I love the way how that dog is so convincingly rendered without too much going on in there. That's a greatly handled figure there too, standing next to it. Real nice. The connections of the path, the shadow of the figure, the shadow going through the middle there, up to the background area. Didn't get too carried away with the trees. Nice, simple, wet into wet. A lot of nice variety of edges. Fun painting. This painting, by the way, was just almost an award winner. I don't know what it is, and I don't live in Florida, but it for whatever reason, not almost most of the paintings, this one just felt like Florida to me. I don't know what it, but that vast, flat, out to nothing out there, those little trees in the distance. The sky out there is just so beautiful. Those subtle clouds are amazing. The sky in there, and I don't know, just something about the quality of light in this thing. Like I said, the flatness of it going out, just kind of whatever the Everglades or something going right out into the water where there's just a little bit of land left. So all of that, just overall, the quality of light and the feeling of it, just like I said, to me, just how I picture Florida, kind of said that to me. And then also how important the design is. These figures going in and out, connecting foreground to middle ground to background to distance with those poles. That boat coming in from the right, again, dark against light, light against dark to help show forms. If you want to show a light shape, paint a dark shape or darker shape next to it. Also, I really like how they were observant with the pole that the guy is using. A lot of times when you're doing a shape like that, yes, it's all the same color and value, but it looks dark in front of a light and light in front of a dark. So where it goes up in front of the sky, it's a darker shape, and then down below, it's a lighter shape, lifted out from in front of the boat. And again, very convincing forms and figures, and yeah, that's a really cool painting. Flag Girl in Waiting. This is the one I was referring to earlier with the horsepower one about the decision to just, and again, it's not a horse portrait, it's more about the girl, obviously, but the personality of a person kind of represented by the clothing they wear. You just picture a young gal spending that much time picking out the boots that she's going to wear, the ornate boots and everything, and it's just so nicely rendered and executed. The details in there are handled beautifully. And once again, the decision to leave the horse itself that pale so it doesn't compete with the boot and all the ornateness of that was a very good decision also. Everything in there is just so convincingly painted. Kind of an interesting portrait of a girl by just painting her foot. Goddess 80. Just a really just speaks to like Mother Earth for something about, I mean, obviously the tones, the colors, the values about this thing. I had an opportunity, I taught in France a long time ago, and we went to see the caves of Lascaux before they were closed due to too many tourists. And there's something about this just feels primitive. Like I said, kind of a primitive piece of art showing the world around us that you would see in that regard. Nice design, the bigness of the shapes, beautiful color palette and textures. Really love the textures in this. If you get a chance to look at this painting up close, if you go back to the show, pay attention to the beautiful textures and colors in there. It's a really vibrant painting, nice abstract. Closer look, just gorgeous glowing shadows in the swan. Amazing. Everything is rendered so convincingly and beautifully. Dipping its beak into the water so that it's connected to the foreground. That was a nice choice. And then, a lot of people are just so afraid to go for it with value and intensity and color, and that the decision to go that strong with the blue of the water, it probably wasn't accurate. Maybe it was, but man, does that help pop the swan out, so just going that bold with that background tone and color in itself was a strong, wise decision because it just makes the whole thing pop incredibly. Beautiful painting. Coconut Cabana, once again, kind of a cool viewpoint. That's the way most of us see palm trees, looking right up at them. Great design, drawing, um, composition, everything about this is really strong. And then I barely even noticed the little squirrel until much, much later. I was kind of looking at the textures of all and again, how convincing those textures are, those old leaves kind of curled up and crispy and stuff. And like you could just grab them and you try and bend them and they're going to snap and rustle in your hands. Everything is really, really convincingly rendered in this painting. But in particular, like I said, I love the perspective, the viewpoint, the design. And then I mean, Coconut Cabana, I thought initially I was like, this is where coconuts live. And it's like, oh, there's a little squirrel in there. A little surprise for those who look long enough. Heading home before nightfall. And this is kind of a neat one too, and maybe it's more of a personal type of a thing, but I tend to wander in winter, and because I love it, and I just put my snowshoes on and walk out, and I love just being in the woods and coming back, and sometimes you lose track of time, and you're trying to get back before it's too dark. And just when I saw that painting, and then luckily when I saw the title after the fact, it really just gave me that sense. That's not a very representational painting. It's more of an emotion, a mood of that the vagueness of the landscape as dusk is settling around us. And you do have that little bit that's heading home, so there's kind of a pathway, to follow through the painting, that darkness, and almost like a little indication of a building up there in the distance too, where you're heading back to. So nice, powerful, emotional painting. This one, I'm kind of glad not everybody did it, but a few people kind of wrote a little something with their painting. And, initially the colors in this threw me off a little bit with how garish they were, but then her description was that she took this photo out the windshield when I think she said something about she had gotten into her first exhibition or won her first award. And she was just mood was just so excited, and so she painted this to reflect that. And I was like, that's pretty cool, to paint that scene through the windshield, just cars in front of you in the taillights. But how do you paint that to show your mood? And so I'm glad she took the time to explain that a little bit because that made a difference. At glance, what a charming young lady she is. That is such a beautifully done painting. the skill again, just edge qualities alone in this painting all over the place. Your eye just everywhere you go is something fun to look at in this painting. But overall, it's very monochromatic. It's basically just rose and light pinks and stuff. But then all of a sudden, bam, right where you want the viewer, those complementary colors of the eyes. The blue eyes are just so hypnotic. The way she's looking at you and everything, that glance and the fact that color is the only place in here, that complementary color. Like I said, really just kind of draws you right in there. Love the fact that you can still see the pencil work in this one too, by the way. That's another thing that bothered me. Everybody's worried about the pencil marks showing up. It's part of watercolor. I love seeing some of those initial sketchy things still visible in the finished painting. New Smyrna relics. Um, Really nice negative painting in this shape or in this painting. Nice negative shapes. I talk about this in my workshop too, how I really don't like masking fluid, especially if you want to paint a little more loosely and impressionistically. Yes, the shapes aren't going to be 100% accurate, but they just, have a little bit more life to them. I like that little bit of incorrectness that you get by painting around a shape versus painting the positive masking fluid and coming in and filling it in later. So these shapes, again, they're not perfectly straight. All the little holes and things in the background and stuff, but it adds a great energy to the painting by just painting dark shapes around them, and taking the time to do that instead of doing the masking fluid. It's a fun one. Great colors. Love the sky. Barnyard, another very fun, energetic landscape. Love the brushwork on in particular, my favorite part of this painting is the foreground. Foregrounds are always so tricky. How do you paint grass, and to depict those fields? And just a few of those great energetic marks in the foreground are just awesome. I love it. The way they kind of intermingle with each other, going back towards the building itself. That's really well done. And then I also love the transitions of colors up in that tree up above it and the way it frames the roof so nicely. Making marks. I don't know if I've met this artist or not. If you're here, please introduce yourself to me later because I think you had a painting in another show that I judged recently about like game night or something. I really like this artist's style, the way they incorporate. I love the design of this, the background colors, that kind of weird energy that to this, the composition of all these linear aspects, those little marks. I don't know, something about this just really draws me in. I love all those little circular marks. I tend to anthropomorphize things a lot when I'm looking at it. And she had, like I said, a similar painting in another show called Game Night, and it just looked like people playing a board game somewhere. But this one, again, just sometimes when you're doing these things, you just find yourself making marks on your painting, and it's so intuitive. Abstract painting. I was talking about that with one of the artists this morning. How I struggle with that and how she approached. She's like, I don't really plan a painting out. I just start and just kind of go off of instinct. That's amazing to me. That's pretty impressive. I can't do that. I need a little bit of a plan. Unwound. That's a fun one too, right? Well, not an easy thing to render, obviously, but I will say one of the things about this, actually, if you really kind of look at it closely, it's not over rendered. It looks like there's a lot of detail, like she painted every string of yarn in there. And in some of the cases, like down in the lower left, there's a little bit more to it, but there's also a lot that's just indicated, and our brains are filling in the blanks. But I think there's just enough in there. Love you know, I don't even care if there wasn't a cat's face up there to kind of draw yourself up there and kind of have a little bit more of one area that draws it in. I kind of like the way, again, your eye just kind of goes from little container to container. The shadows are different in each one. I love how that shadow up above, where there's some of that yellow yarn that's bounced up in the light of the light up above it, kind of reflected light up there. It's not all the same thing. All the shapes are a little bit different. There's a little bit amount of yarn. It's all different shapes. So really nice job of, rendering and design. Beautiful sky, man. This is, like I said, it's just, I'm such a sucker for when watercolor does this on a painting. This is why I paint in watercolors, for that kind of an effect, that rain coming down in the distance, over the water, just letting that little mark come down, so subtle and beautiful. But man, that is just a really gorgeous sky. I like that. Well done. How fun is this one? Dancing in the stars. Again, just you know, little kid dreaming about about space. How many of us have I don't know if you did, but I remember when I was a kid, they had the little glow in the dark stars you could put on your ceiling, and I just spent all these nights dreaming about space and the universe, and I kind of got that feeling of this with the little kid riding a wave up in space. Just a super fun painting, riding that wave, like I said, up in space, dancing in the stars, the freedom of being a kid and dreaming until 2 more years and she's in middle school and everything. Oh, life will get sucked out of her. She's still dreaming, thank God. Charming little girl. End of the road. Yeah, this is a really cool painting too. I mean, just a pair of work boots that you'd wear, solely for hiking or working out in your garden. And then, once they're discarded, put them where they spent their life and let the garden take over the boots, kind of a thing. I think that's a really, again, kind of a neat allegorical type of a scene in a painting. And it's got a really neat story behind it, I think, a personal kind of a story that I could tell when I looked at the painting. But and in addition to it, nicely handled and rendered, obviously the textures and all that stuff. But I love things with a story that make you think a little bit. It helps to be a little squirrely. That's awesome. If you ask somebody to do a portrait of an artist, I think, we have to, present ourselves a little professionally and, all that kind of stuff, but also we have this crazy side to us, and I just kind of love both of those sides of this person showing through in this portrait here, the elegance of the lady herself and her outfit, and then that crazy hat, and she's holding squirrels for some reason, Like I said, that's a portrait of an artist. We all got to be a little crazy. Brewing. I again, abstracts. I never profess to be an expert at abstracts. I just kind of get a gut feeling for ones that I like, depending on the color scheme, the composition, the design, and stuff like that. But that grabbed me initially about this one. But then when you think about it, the term brewing, even though I could use a coffee right now. But the brewing storm, the turmoil that comes, and most of the time you're seeing, flatter, dark shapes, and then the energy is in the light areas. And in this one, it's like in the light areas, the flat blue, the flatter yellows and stuff. And then the energy is in those dark areas, like something is brewing, that turmoil, that darkness approaching. So that's kind of the feeling I got from this, anyways. It's nice abstract. I like that kind of a different take on the design. Another one that just kind of showcases the beauty of watercolor, much like the cloud study. That softness is just so fun, and that softness that really, you know, I was I think I did something like that in a demonstration for my workshop, telling the students, if you want to show the spray of a waterfall, not everything can't be soft. You need some hard edge and contrast to it also to kind of set that off and make those areas look softer, in contrast to that. So having those jagged edges nearby there and then in conjunction with the softness in the right spots, works really well. It's a nice painting. On to the awards. All right, and I did take some notes on some of these here, but Dance of the Flamingos, really like the texture underneath. The texture underneath this one helps this painting so much, I think. It really helps to make this one unique. I like this painting a lot. So I had several flamingo paintings submitted, and this one just felt different and unique. She had her own take on the birds here. I loved how they're all kind of doing their own thing and the way they're intertwining. But again, those decisions of those organic, bright pink shapes of the flamingos and those strong horizontal cool colors to set them off, and then that texture in the background is really nice. That's nice that that one got an award, purchase award. Cheap Joe's purchase award, Strawberry Moon. That just, yeah, that's a really powerful painting as well. It really, and then going back to what I was talking about with that sunset one, you know, if you want to make that moon look bright, the contrast you have to put into it. And you know, that composition, the design of this one weaving back in through the water, that's a strong one. That's a strong painting. It probably, this is one that I think looks better in person than on the screen. It's hard to, anytime you have a nocturne, I have trouble photographing mine too because it's so contrasty. You need to look at this painting in person in the show, I think, to really get a sense of what it is. So those first two paintings were given purchase awards by local vendors. Now we're starting the ones that I gave awards to that I chose. So the ones we love, again, I talked about this a little bit in previous portraits, but I was so taken by the how much personality that I could gather about these three people with that limited amount of information. The tilt of the head of the middle figure, kind of thinking like it's an old lady. I mean, it's so important to leave something to the imagination. Okay, everything becomes more familiar when our brains are forced to fill in the blanks. We all have lost relatives. This kind of has the feeling of an old formal photograph, you know, of relatives that maybe are since gone, the ones we love. And if it was more of a formal portrait, be like, yeah, that's the ones that she loves, but you know, not necessarily the ones that I love. But because it's so vague, I'm kind of seeing my Uncle Riney in the right hand guy, you know, and my brother-in-law who passed away in the left guy, you know. You're forced to fill in the blanks. Like I said, there's enough information there. The personality of these people are showing through, but again, the familiarity that comes just because of the title and the composition of the scene, but then kind of gathering the rest of the information on our own. I really like this painting a lot. That was a fun one. Congratulations. Palm Beach Promenade too. That's, I mean, wow, bang. It kind of goes back to what I was saying. About the other one a little bit about, you know, what makes Florida look like Florida. This is on, you know, what makes Miami Beach look like Miami or whatever, Palm Beach, you know, that's the other end of the spectrum when you think about Florida for me, you know, just colors and vibrancy and, you know, my God, thank God we got away from the snow and I love this color. So yeah, that's a really fun, energetic painting, great fun use of color. Nice composition, bouncing that violet all over the place. Everything about it is a really fun painting to look at. I thought that one deserved an award. This guy gets it done. Yes, he does. Is about as no nonsense as you can get. The guy, if he screwed up my car while working on it, I'd be like, "That's okay. You did well. I'm fine. Here's your money." Yeah. I love the character of this guy. He is just so impressive. Just again captured so much personality, and the decision to put the curvilinear form of his hat right in front of that dark geometric shape of the doorway once again just kind of really draws your eye right up to that area. So that's a really nice compositional decision on that on there too. But you know, just everything about the guy depicts that strength, those big forearms and everything, and even just, you know, no nonsense. This green suspenders on the bright red shirt. You know, there's no pattern on the shirt. It's just a red T-shirt. Um, and really nice job of those simple little marks in the dirt too. You know, to just not it's not just too boring. There's just a little bit of those truck marks in there. You know, the guy drives a truck too because of those things in there. So fun painting, nicely done. Hooter Pond, plein air. Um, Boy, there's nothing more difficult than simplifying the interior of a forest. It's just chaos. And I have students that like to paint, you know, gardens and flower gardens and forests and stuff, and I try and steer them away from that because I tell them there's no definite shapes. It's all dappled light. You've got to be so good at simplifying forms and choosing your battles when you do that. And until you're really comfortable, you know, making those decisions, it's not probably not a good idea to tackle something that's just that broken up. But you know, especially plein air, my goodness, this is so impressive. But the ability to look at all that chaos and still find those beautiful, simple, descriptive shapes, and not, I mean, it doesn't even look like he drew this first. You know, it just looks like he's making those marks with his brush. I love it. That's a really nice painting. Another just a beauty. Koi soliloquy again. Probably one that's um, fun to look at in person. It's a little larger painting, but the format of that one, it just looks like a beautiful Japanese woodcut. I love the decision once again on this. Most of us think koi, very colorful, the orange and everything in here. Um, this is, it's all just those greens and dark colors, but it just holds together so beautifully. Everything about this painting is so elegant. I love the stretched horizontal format of it, those beautiful organic marks coming in and out of it over the reflection. It's an amazing painting. That's a really nice floral also. If you're going to paint flowers and submit flowers into shows, it needs to be exceptional. There's so many usually that are entered. And, not just the handling of the flowers, obviously, but again, the title and kind of showing the stages of the bouquet. Some of them yesterday, the ones are already fading, falling off, drooping. Today, the bright pink blossoms are still vibrant and holding their shape. Tomorrow, you've got some little buds, even maybe ready to pop out. So, kind of fun with the title and the design and everything. And then the decision to leave. Most of the time, I'm trying to say when you have a still, find a way to don't just spotlight the flowers. Join them into the background somehow. Have a shadow area. But in this case, I really like the decision once again to kind of leave that background mostly white, just that very beautiful, pale, subtle shadow to mimic the shapes of the flowers, I think works really beautifully. And it's just a very elegant looking painting. Congratulations. Party of Three, that's a very fun painting too. I love the decisions that went into the background and foreground of this one. That background, once again, like I was saying, previously, um, going dark enough. That was so important in this case, whatever's those sand dunes or whatever's back there behind them. Not very little information. You don't want that background to compete with the figures. We all get a sense, where they're at. It's a beach. You don't need to have too much back there. And it's not, all the warm browns. I love the fact that they made the sand dunes blue with the background too, so that the warmth of the skin tone of the figures is accented more. That's not hot, warm sand behind them, so it's all competing for attention. And even the sand in the foreground was beautiful. I try and tell people how often I mix lavender or blue into my sand. It's a much cooler looking, warm color, brown color than most people make sand. Too much burnt sienna or yellow or something. And normally it's very cool. And again, the decisions in the background and foreground in this one are really make a big difference, wisely done. And then, the powerfully strong, intense color on the guy's arms and his face, right next to that bright sunlight on the back of his neck. And then again, that real dark back behind that, um, really does a nice job of showing the sunlight on there. I love the decision of the girl shaking the towel, just, getting sand and everything. And I pick it up and throw it, but not only just right by the sand, but I love those marks continuing through the painting and kind of tying it all together. Just a fun painting, beautifully executed, simplified nicely. Parked. So this one is obviously it's a representational painting, but it's all anchored in, really good abstract design as well. Um, Again, the juxtaposition of shapes, textures, all those lines and the up above, the power lines kind of reflected down below. There's, nice linear work in the parking lot below it. I don't know if there's shadows from the power lines or actually lines in the pavement or whatever it might be, kind of leading the viewer's eye in and out. A lot of nice interlocking, overlapping shapes to keep the viewer's eye going through the painting. Most of the time, composition 101, make the star of the show red, to make sure that the viewer's eye goes there. In this case, the star of the show, that car front and center, making that turquoise and making the secondary cars red so that they still, the contrasting colors still help. That's the only turquoise, really in the show. So those other three red cars, I mean, they do kind of draw your attention to it, but they just heighten the fact that that turquoise car is the most important one. A lot of really good decisions in this painting, and this is yet another one when I saw it in person last night that I was just even more impressed with it. Where the river meets the sea, just a beautifully, again, abstract but semi-representational scene. And that really gives that feeling of those areas too. I teach in Mexico in a beautiful little fishing village, and it's at the mouth of a river that comes in, and the water is all kind of brackish there, and that whole place has this kind of a different kind of energy. And I get that sense from this painting, that energy where the river is coming in, the blue color kind of representing the fresh water, the green brackish seawater intermingling, and where they do that warm water kind of mixing with the sea is usually where there's a bunch of vibrant, sea life and, little snails and lobsters and everything, all those little bits of warm color in the water. This whole thing is just a really nice, semi-abstract depiction of that kind of a scene. I love that painting. Really well done. Great energy. COVID day 5. That's hilarious. Yeah, she's already bored. Day 5. You have no idea what's coming, young lady. I don't even remember day 5. Oh man, I may as well have been 5 years old. But yeah, I mean, in addition to that great, title and her expression and all that, um, really beautifully handled. The small little marks that she used to define all the planes on her face. It's not, when you look at it, it looks very simplified, and it is, but there are so many subtle little color shifts around the eye socket. I love the way that the right eye is a little droopy and the other eye isn't. They're forms, and they're even kind of a little kind of squared off. Those shapes that look like they're painted. I don't know if this artist paints with a flat brush or a round brush, but it kind of looks like she's making those marks with a flat brush. But all those shapes are amazingly executed, very convincing, kept some just enough in there to describe every little nuance of her face as it curves around. And then the hair is just so, you know, exquisitely handled too. That big chunk of hair coming down around her neck is just that one big, powerful shape. I just love that painting. Really, really nice portrait. I hope I'm not forgetting. I'm not checking my notes because it's all dark in here. I forgot to have the lights off, so I hope I'm not forgetting to say anything. But um, this deep forest, again, I was talking with somebody else at the show last night that was standing in front of this, and she was telling me how she took an Alaskan cruise and her husband was sick or something. So she just took a hike into the forest, and she was like, this is what it felt like. That deep forest. I mean, it's so primordial feeling. And going back to what I was saying about simplifying the interior of a forest, I can't think of anything more difficult to paint than the interior of a forest. And I just love the mood of this, that I don't get Alaska from this. I get like a hot tropical jungle getting lost in there. But um, it's again kind of unnerving, that the whole sense of being, in a place where you realize you're not on the top of the food chain, and even that is heightened. That almost looks like a beast, that with its mouth open. It just everything about this just kind of gives you a little bit of an unnerving, uncomfortable feeling. And I love to be in the woods, but like I said, there's times when you're in there and you get kind of the hair on the back of your neck stands up like I I don't belong in here. And it's a really cool painting. What a fun. I love that portrait. It's so cool. It's just got so much character to it. Obviously the color scheme, those complementary colors just make this whole thing glow. The expression on that dog's face, just the intelligence, the inquisitiveness, everything is captured so beautifully in here. So I mean, execution wise, outstanding. The and again, when it comes to award winners, a lot of times I'm just like, I find myself saying, man, I wish I had painted that, and the color choices on the body of that dog, and in particular, coming down the right side, left side of the painting, the dog's right side, with those, just the blue and the violet and that little splash of red, and it's just a big shape. It reads so well, but it's just so artistic and fun and fresh, and I don't think I would do that. It's just really, really impressive when you see, and I love the little pencil border on that thing too. I think that adds to the painting. And and also another really tricky thing to do is to just make shapes in the background and not worry about if they look like something, something on a shelf or a book or books or whatever. And those, whatever that is in the background, it looks like there's some kind of a shelving or pillars or whatever. But it's nothing, who cares? Let the viewer decide what it is. Going back to what I was saying about the portrait of those people, one of the earlier ones, we just, if that was overly described, it would just compete with Baloo, okay? And just having the guts to just paint some of those shapes and let them stand on their own and let the viewer decide is nice. And they were important, the colors back there bounce things around. But there's so much to love about that painting. It's awesome. Between Acts. This is another one of those where like, I don't think I've seen a painting like that. It was just so cool. It's a really interesting style. It's almost kind of a velvety feeling to it, the textures, and I don't know if that's and another fun thing for me is to try and figure out how the artist executed these paintings sometimes when I haven't seen something like it before. So I'm like, how many, if there's just a bunch of glazes in the darks, but yet it's still transparent and has great color, going dark enough with it. You really get this sense of, I mean, on this patio, I love how, the most contrast is on those trees, that those spotlights that they have coming up there. That's how it feels to be out on a patio, all that stuff. And every one of those figures is unique, different, their position, who they're talking to. Some are turned away, they're all involved somewhat with each other, but somewhat, on their own, kind of mingling and waiting out there for, whatever between acts, waiting for the show to start, just killing time. Just and so fun how they don't all have a spotlight on them. Some of them have a little bit more bright reflected light on them. Some of them are a little bit more, subdued and merging into the background a little bit more. It's just my eye just kind of kept going through this painting, enjoying every moment of it. It's a really, really well done. This thing is amazing. Roots, frequency. Um, I mean, I don't, number one, I don't have the patience to do anything even close to this. That is just remarkable. I have no idea how long this painting took. But I mean, incredible. And this is another one, kind of like the forest one, that just kind of, I mean, once I got beyond that, wow, that's amazing. But it just kind of gave me this uncomfortable feel, like a little bit of a claustrophobic feeling, just being amongst all those roots underground, it's just so dense and intertwined, like you're just trying to fight your way through a cobweb. But it's really incredible the amount of technical expertise it took to do this painting, and it also speaks to both the chaos and the randomness and the order of nature. These shapes that are similar over and over again, but that chaos that's out there. Um, Really, really beautiful painting. I love it. Sapa rice fields. I think it's Sapa. Um, Pretty fun painting. Again, a unique subject, a unique vantage point. It's got all these little, there's a lot of big restful areas, which again, I think are nice. It's got kind of an obvious star of the show with those buildings up there. But there's also, the more I looked at it, there's all these little pockets of, interesting things to look at. That little pond on the left, some little areas of the rocks in your eye because of all those, the rice fields. Your eye is just kind of traveling through the painting all the time and stopping in all these little areas. It's a really beautiful painting. I love the color scheme on it. Most of it is very organic, but then you've got those rooftops, to set things off. That little rusty rooftop up there on that green building, that little bit of accented color is so important. Not only just the contrast, obviously, of that black and the whites up there, but those complementary colors next to each other kind of help, to suck your eye up into that corner. And then again, just kind of speaking to the randomness of nature when the one of my favorite, then it might sound kind of crazy but or weird, but I looked at that big field in the background and all those little marks that were on there, and they're really nicely done. Actually, they're not too dark, they're very subtle. There's a little bit of, there's a lot of variety in the shapes and the patterns and the kind of marks that artist made to show all those little things going back into the distance. It's a really enjoyable painting to just spend a lot of time, like I said, letting your eye wander through this and investigate it. remote villages. And again, this one speaks to the importance of a good title. It's kind of what it feels like. You think of this vast areas of nothing in between these little pockets of activity, little towns or villages or something. So separated, like again, with all this space in between them, and then that one little, kind of a random footpath going through from one village to another, where they're kind of spending time going back and forth. Why are only those two connected and not the others? Who knows? Maybe that has something to do with one's Irish and one's Norwegian. But it's just kind of again, really obviously nice design. I like abstract painting. I'm not a big fan of overly busy abstract paintings. I mean, energy is important, but I think whenever you're talking about non-representational art, all those kinds of other aspects are even take on even more of a heightened importance as far as line, composition, balance. Those dark shapes are all in balance. The big restful area, again, the little pockets of energy to kind of keep your eye winding through geometric linear shapes, curvilinear shapes. This is a really nice abstract painting, and I love the title describes it perfectly. This I really like this painting a lot. The more I looked at it, the more I liked it. There's so much to love about this. Number one, I love the fact that just her position. You can't see the phone in her hand, but we all know exactly what she's doing after sitting in a pub, checking her emails, holding her phone out like that. That gesture is just so universal in this day and age. So I love that aspect of it. Number one, just kind of the familiarity of the scene. The more I looked at it, the more I enjoyed about it. I love that portrait that's up above her. It kind of mirrors the expression on her face. It's like a self-portrait up above there. Just this kind of bored and yes, she's out of work, but now I have to go through the tedium of checking my phone, and even though she's sitting in a nice, comfortable lounge, she doesn't seem that thrilled with things. And again, that portrait right above her just mirrors her expression. I love the fact that the beer, the drink that's on her table mirrors the lamp back there and just kind of balances that shape out so nicely. There's a wonderful balance of geometric shapes next to curvilinear shapes, dark next to light, warm next to cool. Um, it's really, really nicely designed, handled. It's got a great story to it. And yeah, I was really impressed with this painting. I thought it deserved a big award. This is a really cool painting too. Um, the 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 decision to kind of make it slightly askew and tilted adds to the chaotic feeling to it. I love the decision to not have it, looking straight at it. Just that tilted viewpoint, like I said, made a huge, huge difference. I love the decision to do that. I live in Minnesota, and people love the Mall of America, and I just hate that damn place. It is huge and confusing, and I never remember what floor I'm on. And if God forbid we get separated, we don't find each other for an hour and a half. And again, this all just kind of gives you that chaotic feeling of the big mall. The figures in this are really wonderfully rendered too. If you get a chance to look at this painting a little bit more up close, pay attention to the figures, those little pockets of activity, but there are not too many of them. They're just enough, obviously, to show the activity in the mall, but it's more about, the big escalators and the glass walls and everything, the walkways. Just a great design. Everything about this painting is so, so cool. I love it. And it could be, something like this could get very busy and overworked really easily. And like I said, it's not overworked. It's busy enough, like I said, to give you the feeling of the chaos of the interior of a mall. But there's a lot of actually really nicely simplified areas in this painting to make sure that you're not just, I don't know where to look. Your eye, those intertwining escalators and walkways, keep your eye passing through the whole thing so well. It's an awesome painting. Zion Remembered. This was one of those paintings when I was going through, the initial thing. I was like, whoa, okay, that's in. Um, it just, again, something I don't see that often. I have not seen a painting like that, ever judging in a show. It's so powerful. I've never been to Zion, but I've been to parks similar to it, and it's impressive. All the nature is just so overwhelming, everything about it. And I love in this painting, it's really divided into thirds, water, rock, and sky. Every part of the landscape is equally represented in its own unique way in this painting, and they all kind of combine to show the impressiveness of being in this and out in nature, that the sky, that bigness of the moon. When you're out west or out really out in nature, and the stars and the moon sometimes just feel overwhelming, the size of it and the brightness of it. And that's, just that big black sky and the huge moon. And then those beautiful textures in the water area is how I took it. Just kind of showing that the raging rivers that go through those parks and taking advantage of some of the beautiful effects of watercolor and in that area. And then the solidity of the rock. And when you're out in those parks, you get pictographs on them and things sometimes, and the little marks that you can discover. But just that big geometric form, and like I said, and the solidity of it towering higher up above than anything else. And how, like I said, they all three of them are equal parts to show the majesty of nature. It's a wonderfully designed painting. The color palette works so well together. Um, the richness of the whole thing. Right when I saw it, it's super powerful painting. Congratulations. Center stage. Good old Dean. Wish he'd stop entering shows so the rest of us could win awards. uh, every time I see it, it's like, damn it, Dean. Um, but you know, there's a reason he wins awards. He's a damn fine artist. And once again, going beyond the handling of the paint and the way he showed simply showed those paintings on the wall in the museum behind it. You get beyond all that stuff, and then you start to kind of think of the story of it. The title, center stage, and again, kind of anthropomorphizing things, but how it must feel to be on exhibit in a museum and just sitting there and having people walk by and stare at you all day. And the fact that it's a nude figure kind of lends itself. We've all the nightmares of naked in high school giving a speech or something. Everybody's staring at me. She's sitting there center stage. Even the fact that yes, she's in a case, but it's this a clear glass case, and it doesn't provide that much protection, or anything. You're still very vulnerable, and the painting of the guy up above is like he's looking down at her, almost leering down at the form down in there, and even that the chair in the background is just kind of inviting somebody else to come and sit and stare at you for a while. So everything, it's a really cool story, beautifully handled. The colors, the richness of the colors, the design of the whole thing. Like I said, the guy looking down, the angles of the case, everything kind of leading your eye in. Even how well the shape of the bowl on the top of her head is mirrored with the shape of the chair. It's almost that identical shape, bouncing the eye around. It's an amazing painting. It's got once you kind of dive deeper and go beyond the obvious skill and technique of the artist, it's just kind of fun to notice those other things, and thought it deserved a good award. And last but not least, by any rate, best in show, Whirlwind. Um, I don't know. It's rare that I see a portrait that just kind of really takes your breath away like this. It's so powerful. This gal, you almost just want to put your arms around her and comfort her. She looks like she's just trying to hold it all together. The expression on her face, like she's trying to put a brave face, but she's just about to break. And even like the little turquoisey colors and the like tears are welling up in her eyes. I don't know, it's just a very, very emotional painting. When I saw it, I loved it. Um, and the subtleness of it and the colors in there, the textures are so nice. I love the little linear things and the hair, the combination of that. It's just it was really, really powerful painting. When I saw it, I knew instantly. Like I said, I just definitely thought that one deserved best in show. Really, really powerful scene. Yeah, can't say anything more about it. It's awesome. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Um, I know not everybody always agrees with my choice. Like I said at the beginning, art is too subjective, and to have to sit up here and justify your choices. I know it's all part of it, but sometimes, it's just I like that painting for whatever reason, but hopefully that helped to give you a little bit of the insight into what I was feeling about them.